Brian Berling from eMotimo here, chatting from Forge Media Group's studio, and we're talking today about things that can get shooters shooting, getting past some of the COVID restrictions. And what I wanted to show you a lot more about today is this little blue box called the Skaarhoj PTZ Fly. This is a control surface that's offered by a third party, and since last year we've been working on an integration to allow the Spectrum ST4 to be driven by that. And it's something new and it's something different for eMotimo customers who are used to having their primary control be a PS4 controller or potentially a secondary controller being like Dragon Frame or even potentially using our API. The advantage of this system, and I'll show this to you in a little bit, isn't just a single operator controlling one camera anymore. It's pushing eMotimo into the multi-camera space and into the studio space where camera automations are going to help with live productions. Let me show you more. First things first, looking down here, we are going to our home screen on this, and I'll walk you on through this controller. This is the PTZ Fly, but we also integrate with the PTZ Extreme, which is just a whole lot more soft and configurable buttons and knobs. And that's what these really are. Of course, this is a pan tilt joystick, and we can assign it as such. It also has a twist knob so that we can work through that as well. But what we also have down here is camera selection. So my camera one, when I hook up my system, and this is all a wired network system that's chatting with eMotimo, when I connect to camera one, it's the camera over my left-hand shoulder, and I have live control of that now. I've got my pan tilt control. Off of this deck, I could set some speed limits where my full deflection of the stick now is acting like that. In addition, I've got it configured so that when I turn this wheel, I can go through and do slide. I'm going to turn that on up, and I believe we still have our limits set on this side. I've set up some soft limits so that I can't run into my track ends. But I've got live control of this, and this solves a problem that exists for a lot of shooters right now. And that is, I want to be able to handle some framing from a different room. This is Category 5 network cable. It's actually PoE, or power over internet. And so anywhere that your network exists, you can go through and you can chat with a camera, with one of these camera positions. There's a small network adapter box on the ground that takes an Ethernet connection and runs a signal to the eMotimo. And when those things are addressed and put together, it means that wherever this network is and however far it is, and that could be hundreds of feet, even thousands of feet if you're using repeaters, you can connect to this, and your interface is this. You don't need to see the Spectrum anymore. You don't need to see the screen. We are disconnected from that interface if we want to be. And so in that, we get all of our live control. We can control many of the things like the feel and the damping associated with that. And we get a lot of good stuff too. Let me walk you on through what we can do. eMotimo shoots cinema style shots. We care not just about positioning like a security camera might. We care more about the quality of the motion. We care about how we get to that position. We care about the trajectory and arriving at the same time. We've already built all this into our interface. We call it go-to frames in the eMotimo world. But in the Skaarhoj world and with other cameras like this, we call them presets. And we can set up a lot of presets. Off the top of this, we've got 5 attached to camera one right here, but I can scroll to the right on these soft buttons. This controller is quite smart. All of these OLEDs along the top are configurable for a particular button press, and I'm pressing the sides of the buttons to traverse my way through the menus. I can press here to go home. I can go through and use these as navigation buttons to create not just 6 buttons and 4 knobs and a joystick along the way, but multiple screens to allow me to do things. In this case, I'm showing presets. And what I can do with that camera position is I'm going to jog on over and call this preset number 1 for camera number 1. I'm going to press and hold that until it turns green and flashes. And now I've locked that on in. And I haven't just locked in that position, I've locked in how I'm going to get to that position with my timing. I've set it to be 10 seconds to get there. Let's bring that down and let's call that just 8 seconds to get there with 1.5 seconds of ramp, which is our easings on our starts and stops. And so from wherever I am to that position I just set, I hit this button And exactly 8 seconds later, I'm going to arrive at that position. And all that motion that's happening in between is coordinated and it arrives on its mark on time. The second part about this and kind of the phase shift that is really unique is we've only been dealing with one camera, but I've got another camera that's on the same network over my other shoulder. I'm going to go back and I have 2 buttons right here, camera 1, camera 2. They're both glowing. The brighter one is the active camera. I select camera 2 now, and now I've got live control of this. So if you just needed live control and framing to adjust for headspace or somebody shifting in their seats, you've got it covered. That's the basics of what this does. But the really exciting part is now we can start coordinating this motion together. You can call it macros or automations along the way. But let me show you. Let's say this is for this particular camera, for the one over my right shoulder, I'm gonna set that as preset number 1. Now I'm gonna go through and I'm gonna set that, and I'm actually jogging the zoom control on there. We're using one of our focus wheels there. I'm gonna set that as preset number 2. And now I'm jumping to a point on my screen right here where I'm doing multi-point or multi-camera control. And what I mean by that is now, when I hit a single button, I recall position 1 there, but now I hit camera number 2, and I'm actually calling both of those camera positions to go to that position number 2 over the speed I've specified. They're actually different between the cameras. I hit preset number 1, and now they're going back to that other predefined setup. I could set up 20 different keyframes or 20 different presets for these, and I could recall them together. Not for just 2 cameras, not for just 3. We could do 5 cameras easily on this. I think the limit's actually 8 or 10 different cameras from this single control surface. You could imagine sitting on down, working with this interface ahead of time, coordinating your camera motions, assigning presets, and doing a little bit of legwork before a shot. And then when you're in the middle of the shot, you could go to your preset 1, 2, 3 for the 1 through 20 on these individual cameras and recall them without having to know that position offhand. And then further, you could go through and have a single button press, recall the presets for multiple camera positions. So we're asking operators to do more than just controlling a single camera position and enabling them to do so with these automations. So we're really excited about this integration and what it can do for eMotimo customers today and what it can do in a studio environment where you have multiple cameras. The level of automation we're creating, the macros that we're enabling right here, all the while pushing into a studio environment, adding slide, letting users attach whatever camera and lens they want and integrate to a Skaarhoj system, we think it's really exciting.